I found the pregnancy test in the bathroom trash 3 days after my wife told me she couldn't have children. We'd been married for 16 years, survived my father's death, her mother's Alzheimer's, bankruptcy, a house fire that took everything we owned. We'd rebuilt from nothing twice, held each other through grief that should have broken us, promised each other that nothing could tear us apart. And I believed it. Through every crisis, every hardship, every moment when lesser couples would have crumbled, we stayed strong. We were the success story, the ones who proved love could conquer anything. Then I found that positive pregnancy test, and I realized our marriage had survived everything except the one thing that should have been easiest to survive: the truth. My name is Thomas, I'm 42 years old, and this is the story of how a lie told 17 years ago destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. I met Lauren when we were both 23, working at the same nonprofit in Boston. She was a grant writer, I was in program development, and we bonded over terrible office coffee and shared frustration with bureaucracy. She was beautiful in an understated way. Dark hair always pulled back, minimal makeup, the kind of woman who didn't need to try to turn heads, but did anyway. Our first date was at a hole-in-the-wall Thai restaurant where we talked until they started putting chairs on tables. She told me about growing up in Vermont, about her dream of starting her own nonprofit someday, about the brother she'd lost to addiction when she was 19. I told her about my chaotic childhood with 5 siblings, my complicated relationship with my father, my certainty that I wanted to spend my life doing work that mattered. I don't want kids, she said at some point during that first date, matter-of-factly, like she was stating her coffee preference. I know that's something people need to know up front, so I'm just putting it out there. Okay, I said, surprised by her directness. Why not? I just don't. I never have. I don't have the maternal instinct everyone talks about. I like kids fine, but I don't want to raise them. And I'd rather be honest about that than pretend I might change my mind someday. I appreciated her honesty, even if I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about it. I'd always vaguely assumed I'd have kids someday, but it wasn't a burning desire, more just something on the checklist of life milestones I thought I'd eventually reach. I respect that, I told her. Thanks for being upfront about it. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. By then, I'd decided that Lauren mattered more to me than hypothetical children I'd never really thought deeply about anyway. We had a great partnership, similar values, genuine love and respect for each other. That felt more important than following some traditional life script. We got married in a small ceremony in her parents' backyard, made vows about partnership and honesty, and facing whatever life threw at us together. And for the first few years, it was exactly that, a genuine partnership. We were broke but happy, working long hours at nonprofits that barely paid, coming home to our tiny apartment and cooking cheap dinners and planning the future we'd build together. Then came the first test. My father had a stroke when I was 27. He survived, but with significant brain damage that left him needing full-time care. My mother had passed away years earlier, and my siblings were scattered across the country, most of them barely scraping by financially. The responsibility fell to me. We can't afford a care facility, I told Lauren one night, after researching costs that made my head spin. Not a good one anyway. The state facilities they're awful, Lauren. I can't put him in one of those places. Then what are you thinking? I'm thinking he moves in with us. We convert the spare room, get a visiting nurse a few times a week, and I handle the rest. She was quiet for a long moment. We'd been married for 4 years at that point, and the spare room had become her office, her sanctuary. Asking her to give that up for my father, who hadn't always been kind to her, who'd made judgmental comments about our childless marriage, was enormous. Okay, she finally said. If that's what you need to do, we'll make it work. And she did. She helped me convert the room, researched care strategies, learned how to handle his medications and exercises. She was patient with him, even when he was confused and combative, even when he called her by my mother's name, even when he accused her of stealing things he'd imagined having. She did it without complaint, without holding it over me, without making me feel guilty for the burden I'd placed on our marriage. My father lived with us for 3 years before a second stroke killed him, and through those 3 difficult years, Lauren never wavered. She was the partner I'd needed, the person who'd promised to face hard things together, and actually meant it. "I couldn't have done this without you," I told her the night after his funeral. "You were amazing with him. I know it wasn't easy. He was your father. Of course I was going to help." She took my hand. "That's what marriage means. We show up for each other, no matter what." I believed her completely. The second test came 2 years later. The nonprofit Lauren worked for lost its major funding and had to shut down. She was devastated. She'd poured 6 years into building their programs, and watching it all dissolve felt like personal failure. She struggled to find another position. The nonprofit sector was competitive, and we were in the middle of a recession. Months passed with her unemployed, her confidence eroding, depression setting in. I picked up extra consulting work, took on freelance projects at night and on weekends. We burned through our minimal savings, racked up credit card debt, but we made it work. I supported her emotionally while she struggled, encouraged her to keep applying, reminded her of her worth when she couldn't see it herself. Eventually, she found a position at a smaller organization. It paid less than her previous job, and the work was less fulfilling, but it was something. We slowly climbed out of debt, rebuilt our savings, found our footing again. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she said one night after she'd been at the new job for about 6 months. "I know these last couple years have been hell. We're a team. We get through things together." I mean it, Thomas. A lot of men would have grown resentful, would have made me feel like a burden. But you never did that. You just kept loving me. "That's not going to change," I promised her. "Whatever happens, we face it together." The third test was the house fire. We'd finally managed to buy a small house in a suburb outside Boston. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. We'd been there for less than a year when an electrical fire started in the walls while we were both at work. By the time the fire department got it under control, everything was gone. Photos, furniture, Lauren's grandmother's jewelry, my father's war medals, all of it reduced to ash and smoke damage. We stood in front of the ruins of our home, and I watched Lauren's face crumble. "Everything," she whispered. "Everything we've worked for. We still have each other," I said, pulling her close. "Everything else can be replaced." We lived with her parents for 6 months while dealing with insurance, contractors, rebuilding. It was cramped and stressful, and Lauren's mother's Alzheimer's was progressing, adding another layer of complexity. But we made it work. We supported each other through the frustration and grief and exhaustion. When we finally moved back into the rebuilt house, it felt like a victory, like we'd proven that nothing could break us. We'd survived death, unemployment, financial disaster, literal fire. What couldn't we overcome? I was 38 by then. We'd been married for 13 years. And one night, lying in bed in our rebuilt house, Lauren said something that would change everything. "I've been thinking," she started carefully, "about kids." I turned to look at her, surprised. "I thought you didn't want children." "I didn't. I don't. But we've been through so much together, and we've built this life, and sometimes I wonder if we're missing something. If maybe having a family would be..." She trailed off. "I don't know. I'm just thinking about it." My heart did something complicated. I'd made peace with not having children years ago, but hearing her say this reopened something I'd closed off. "Are you saying you want to try?" "Maybe. I don't know. Can we just think about it? Talk about it?" We talked about it for months. The pros, the cons, the logistics. I could see Lauren wrestling with it, trying to figure out if the desire was real or if she was just feeling societal pressure as we approached 40. We went to therapy, had long conversations about what parenting would actually look like, what we'd be giving up and gaining. Finally, she said she wanted to try. We started having unprotected sex, stopped being careful about timing, waited to see what would happen. Nothing happened. Month after month, no pregnancy. After a year, we went to a fertility specialist. The doctor ran tests. Lots of tests. And then one day, Lauren came home from an appointment she'd gone to alone and told me she couldn't have children. "There's significant scarring in my fallopian tubes," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "The doctor said it's from an old infection, maybe years old. The chances of me getting pregnant naturally are basically zero." "What kind of infection causes that?" "Pelvic inflammatory disease. Could have been from anything. An untreated STI, a complication from an IUD, bacterial infection." The doctor said there's no way to know for sure. I felt like I'd been punched, not just because of the infertility, but because of the implication of an untreated STI. "Lauren, did you have an STI before we met?" "I don't know. Maybe. I had some issues in college, but I never got them checked out properly. I didn't have health insurance, and I didn't think it was serious. She was crying now. I'm so sorry. If I'd known, if I'd gotten treatment, maybe we could have had children. But I ruined it. I ruined our chance. I held her while she sobbed, telling her it wasn't her fault, that we'd figure out other options. IVF, surrogacy, adoption. There were ways to become parents, if that's what we really wanted. But she shut down the conversation, said she couldn't handle thinking about it anymore, that she needed time to process the grief of knowing her body couldn't do what she'd finally decided she wanted it to do. I gave her space. Months passed. We didn't talk about children or treatment options or anything related to pregnancy. The subject became off limits, too painful to touch. And then, 3 days ago, I found that pregnancy test. I was taking out the bathroom trash when I saw it, partially hidden under wadded tissues. A plastic stick with 2 pink lines. Positive. My first thought was confusion, then joy, then more confusion. If Lauren had gotten pregnant somehow, despite what the doctors said, why wouldn't she have told me immediately? Why hide the test? I took it out of the trash, stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Then another thought hit me. A worse thought. What if the test wasn't for her? What if she'd been helping a friend? Or, no, that didn't make sense either. I sat on the bathroom floor holding that pregnancy test, and my mind started working through possibilities I didn't want to consider. The nights she'd been working late lately, the new password on her phone, the way she'd seemed distant, distracted. Small things I'd barely noticed because I trusted her completely. When Lauren got home from work, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the test in front of me. She saw it immediately. Her face went pale. Thomas, is this yours? Long silence. Then, yes. You're pregnant. Yes. But you told me you couldn't get pregnant. You said the scarring. I lied. Her voice was barely a whisper. There's no scarring. I can get pregnant. I always could. The room tilted. What? I lied about being infertile, about the infection, the scarring, all of it. I was never infertile, Thomas. I just didn't want children, and when you seemed so hopeful about trying, I couldn't figure out how to tell you the truth. So I lied. I couldn't process what she was saying, couldn't make it make sense. You lied about a medical condition? You let me think we were trying to have a baby for a year, knowing it was impossible, because you didn't want to tell me you'd changed your mind? I never changed my mind. I still don't want children. I just felt pressured. By you, by society, by everyone asking when we're going to start a family. And I thought if I said I couldn't, if there was a medical reason, everyone would stop pushing. So I couldn't finish the question, couldn't say the words out loud. Lauren's silence answered it anyway. You're having an affair. It wasn't a question. Yes. Tears were streaming down her face. Thomas, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. How long? 6 months. 6 months. While I was working overtime to save for IVF treatments we'd never need, while I was researching adoption agencies, while I was grieving our supposed infertility and trying to support her through what I thought was mutual loss. Who? Someone from work. It doesn't matter who. It's not serious. It was just an escape. A way to feel something different. Not serious. You're pregnant with his child. She flinched. I know how terrible this is. I'm ending it. I'm ending the pregnancy. I already made an appointment. Does he know? No, and he's not going to. This is my responsibility to handle. I laughed, but it sounded broken. Your responsibility? Lauren, you've been lying to me for over a year. About infertility, about wanting children, about being faithful. What part of our marriage has been real? All of it. Everything except this. Thomas, I love you. I've always loved you. This was just, I made terrible mistakes. But our marriage, what we've built together, that's real. Is it? I stood up, needed to move. needed to do something with the energy coursing through me. We survived my father dying in our home. We survived bankruptcy. We survived losing everything in a fire. And the whole time you were lying to me about something fundamental. How am I supposed to believe anything was real? Because it was. The hard times we went through, the way we supported each other, that was all real. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I was there for you. I showed up. I helped you through the worst times of your life. While lying about who you were, about what you wanted, about whether you were faithful. Lauren sank into a chair, head in her hands. What do you want me to say? That I'm a terrible person? I am. I know I am. But I'm also the woman who took care of your father for 3 years, who worked 2 jobs when you needed time to grieve, who rebuilt our life with you after the fire. Those things are true too. But they're all contaminated now. Every memory, every moment I thought we were in it together, I'm going to spend the rest of my life wondering what else you were lying about. We sat in awful silence. 16 years of marriage and I didn't know my wife at all. When did the affair start? I finally asked. Right after I told you about the supposed infertility. I felt so guilty about lying, so trapped, and he was just there, understanding, offering something easy when everything else felt hard. So for 6 months, you've been sleeping with him while I believed we were dealing with infertility together. While I was researching treatment options and saving money and trying to figure out how we could still become parents. I know how awful that is. Did you ever actually want children with me? Or was that a lie too? She looked up, eyes red. I don't know. Maybe for a moment I convinced myself I did. Or maybe I just wanted to want them, because you seemed so hopeful. But no, I don't think I ever genuinely wanted to be a mother. I'm sorry. So the whole conversation about trying, the year we supposedly spent trying to conceive, that was just you going through the motions while secretly making sure it wouldn't happen. I was on birth control the whole time. I never told you I'd stop taking it. I just let you believe we were trying. The betrayal kept layering. Every new revelation made it worse. Jesus, Lauren, do you understand what you've done? You didn't just have an affair. You've been lying about fundamental things for over a year. About your body, about children, about your faithfulness. How am I supposed to trust anything you say ever again? I don't know. I don't know if you can. But Thomas, please. We've survived everything else. We can survive this too. We can get through it. No. The word came out firm, certain. We can't. Don't say that. We can go to therapy. I'll end the affair, get the abortion, we can start over. Start over with what? With more lies? Because that's all this marriage has been, apparently. Me telling you the truth while you hide who you really are. That's not fair. I didn't lie about everything. The important things. What important things, Lauren? You lied about wanting children. You lied about being infertile. You lied about being faithful. What's left? What part of you was actually real? She was crying hard now, barely able to speak. The part that loved you. The part that showed up when your father was dying. The part that rebuilt our life after we lost everything. That was real. That's always been real. But it wasn't enough, was it? If it was enough, you wouldn't have needed someone else. It wasn't about you not being enough. It was about me. About my own issues and fears and inability to be honest about what I wanted. Then tell me now, finally, what do you actually want? She looked at me with devastated eyes. I want you. I want our marriage. I want to fix this. Do you? Or do you just want to avoid dealing with the consequences of your choices? I want you, she repeated. I've always wanted you. I just also wanted things to be different than they were, easier. And I made terrible choices trying to have both. I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. I don't know if I can get past this. Please try. Please. We've been through worse. We haven't been through worse. I was shouting now, couldn't control the volume. Every other crisis we faced together. Honestly, this isn't an external crisis. This is you betraying everything our marriage was supposed to be about. You can't compare your affair to my father dying. You can't compare your lies to a house fire. Those were things that happened to us. This is something you did to us. Lauren was silent, and I could see her realizing I was right, that this was different. That 16 years of partnership couldn't smooth over this particular betrayal. "What happens now?" she finally asked. "I don't know. I need time to think. Time away from you." "Where will you go?" "I'll stay with my brother. You stay here. Figure out what you're going to do about—" I gestured vaguely toward her stomach. "That. I'm getting the abortion, that's not a question." "Fine. Do whatever you need to do. But I can't be here right now. I can't look at you." I packed a bag while she watched from the doorway, not speaking. When I was done, I stopped in front of her. "One more question, okay? When you were helping me through my father's illness, when you were supporting me through everything, were you faithful then?" "Yes, I swear. The affair only started 6 months ago. Everything before that, I was faithful. But you were still lying. About wanting children. About who you were. Yes. At least that was honest." I stayed with my brother Marcus for 2 weeks. He didn't ask many questions, just gave me space and beer and occasionally his opinion that Lauren was an idiot for risking our marriage. "You guys are solid," he said one night. "Everyone looks at you two and sees the couple that made it, that survived everything." That's what I thought too. Turns out we were just good at looking solid while rotting from the inside. Lauren texted constantly, apologizing, explaining, begging for another chance. I mostly didn't respond. A few times I did, asking questions I needed answers to. "Did you love him?" "No, it was just physical." "Are you sure the baby is his?" "Yes. We were always careful except once. It only takes once." "Did you ever imagine a future with him?" "Never. I only want a future with you." "Do you regret the affair or just getting caught?" Long pause. "Both. I regret all of it." She had the abortion on a Thursday. Texted me afterward. "It's done. I'm okay. Missing you." I felt nothing. No relief, no sadness, no anger. Just emptiness. Marcus found me staring at my phone. "Was that her?" "Yeah. She ended the pregnancy." "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. Relieved, maybe? That there won't be some kid walking around as a permanent reminder of what she did. But also just empty. Like none of it matters." "You still love her?" "I don't know. I love who I thought she was, the partner who showed up through everything. But that person was partly fiction. She was hiding huge parts of herself while I was fully known to her. That's not love. That's not partnership." "So, what are you going to do?" "I honestly don't know." On day 16 of my exile, Lauren showed up at Marcus's apartment. "We need to talk. Actually talk. Not through text messages." Marcus made himself scarce. Lauren and I sat across from each other at his kitchen table, and it felt like sitting across from a stranger. "I owe you more explanation," she started. "More honesty than I've given you." "Okay." "The truth is, I've never been comfortable with honesty. Not real honesty. I grew up in a house where we didn't talk about hard things, where image mattered more than reality. My parents' marriage looked perfect on the outside while being empty on the inside. And I learned to do the same thing. Present a version of myself that looked like what people wanted while hiding anything complicated or messy. So, you've been lying to me our entire marriage. Not about everything. Not about loving you or wanting to build a life with you. But about the hard things. About my doubts and fears and the ways I wasn't fitting the role I thought I was supposed to play. Yes, I hid all of that. The role of wife. The role of good wife. Supportive wife. Wife who wants children eventually. Wife who's fully satisfied with her marriage and doesn't need anything else. She was crying again. I wanted to be that person. I tried so hard to be that person. But I'm not. And instead of admitting that, I just kept lying and hoping I could make it true through force of will. You could have talked to me. At any point in 16 years, you could have said, "Thomas, I'm struggling with this. I need to be honest about how I feel." I would have listened. Would you? Or would you have tried to fix it? Convince me I was wrong. Find solutions instead of just hearing me. The question stung because there was truth in it. I was a fixer. When problems arose, I looked for solutions. Maybe I hadn't left much room for Lauren to just be messy and uncertain without me trying to resolve it. "That's not fair," I said anyway. You don't get to blame me for your affair because I'm solution-oriented. I'm not blaming you for the affair. That was entirely my choice and my failure. I'm just trying to explain why I found it so hard to be honest, why I built a whole false narrative about infertility rather than just saying I still didn't want children, because lying was easier than disappointing me. Yes, we sat with that truth for a minute. The affair, I finally said. Tell me about it. Not the details, but why him? What was different? Lauren took a breath. He didn't know me, didn't have expectations about who I was supposed to be. With him, I could be imperfect and uncertain and selfish without feeling like I was betraying some image. And that felt freeing, like I could breathe for the first time in years. So you were suffocating in our marriage. Not in the marriage, in the version of myself I was trying to be within the marriage. The perfect partner who never complained, never had doubts, never wanted anything different than what we had. I never asked you to be perfect. You didn't have to ask. I asked it of myself, and when I couldn't sustain it anymore, I found an escape instead of having a conversation about it. This was the most honest Lauren had been in possibly our entire relationship, and it was destroying us. Do you still love me? I asked. Yes, deeply. But I also don't know if I'm capable of being the partner you need, the partner you deserve. What do you think I need? Someone honest, someone who can communicate about hard things instead of hiding them, someone who's genuinely satisfied with the life you're building together. Are you any of those things? I'm trying to be, but I don't know if trying is enough. I've spent 16 years building habits of hiding and lying. I don't know if I can break them just because I finally got caught. At least she was being honest now. Brutally, devastatingly honest. I don't know if I can forgive this, I told her. The affair is one thing. People recover from affairs. But the lying about infertility, about wanting children, about who you are, that feels like it undermines everything we've built. I know. Every time you supported me through my father's illness, every time you worked extra hours to help with money, every time you showed up when things were hard, I'm going to wonder if that was real or just you performing the role of good wife. It was real. I promise you, Thomas, my love for you and my commitment to supporting you through hard times, that was always real. The lies were about me and what I wanted, not about my feelings for you. But how can I trust that? How can I trust anything you say now? She didn't have an answer. Neither did I. We decided to try therapy. Not couples therapy exactly, but individual therapy for both of us with the option of eventually doing joint sessions. Lauren needed to figure out why she'd built her life around lies. I needed to figure out if I could ever trust her again. My therapist asked me during our third session what I wanted the outcome to be. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to fix this. We've survived everything else. We've built 16 years together. That has to count for something. And the other part thinks maybe we only survived those things because I didn't know the truth, that our marriage looked strong because I was living in ignorance while Lauren was living a lie. And maybe that's not actually strong. Maybe it's just fake. Do you think the entire marriage was fake? No. But I think huge parts of it were built on false premises. I thought we were a team that communicated honestly. Turns out we were a team where I communicated honestly, and she performed whatever role she thought I needed. What would you need from her to rebuild trust? Complete honesty from here forward. No more lies, no matter how small. But I don't even know if that's possible. She spent 16 years hiding parts of herself. Can people really change patterns that ingrained? People can change, but it takes sustained effort and willingness to tolerate discomfort. The question is whether she's capable of that, and whether you're willing to wait and see. I didn't know the answer to either question. Lauren and I had dinner together 4 weeks after I'd moved out. Neutral territory, an Italian restaurant we'd never been to before. How's therapy? I asked. Hard. I'm realizing how many issues I've been avoiding for basically my entire life. The people-pleasing, the inability to tolerate disappointing others, the way I'd rather lie than have a difficult conversation. She picked at her pasta. My therapist thinks I need to spend time figuring out who I actually am outside of other people's expectations. That sounds healthy. It's terrifying. I don't know who that person is. I've spent so long being what other people needed that I've lost track of my own wants and needs. So what do you want? Right now, honestly. She met my eyes. I want to fight for our marriage, but I also don't know if that's what's best for either of us. Maybe we've outgrown each other. Maybe the cracks were always there and we just kept plastering over them. We survived a lot of things together. We did, and I don't want to minimize that. But Thomas, we survived those things by leaning on each other through external crises. We never had to actually confront problems within the marriage itself. And now that we are, I don't know if we have the tools. She was right. Every crisis we'd weathered had been something happening to us, not between us. We'd never had to navigate betrayal, dishonesty, fundamental incompatibility. We'd just assumed those things weren't issues because we were so good at handling external problems. My therapist asked me if I still love you, I said. I didn't know how to answer. What did you say? I said I love who I thought you were, but I'm not sure I know who you actually are well enough to say if I love that person. Lauren nodded slowly. That's fair. I'm not sure I know who I actually am either. We finished dinner making small talk about work and her parents and anything that wasn't our marriage. When we left, she asked if I'd come home. Not yet. I'm not ready. When do you think you will be? I don't know. Maybe never. I'm sorry, Lauren, but I don't know if I can do this. Her face crumbled, but she nodded. Okay, I understand. I went back to Marcus's apartment and cried for the first time since discovering the pregnancy test. Not just for the affair or the lies, but for the loss of certainty. For 16 years of believing I knew my wife and my marriage, only to discover I'd been living in a carefully constructed fiction. 3 more months passed. Lauren and I met for dinner occasionally, updating each other on therapy progress, trying to figure out if there was a path forward. Sometimes it felt possible. Other times it felt hopeless. Then one night she said something that changed everything. I think I need to tell you the whole truth, not just about the last year, but about everything. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means I've been holding back. Still trying to protect the image of our marriage, protect you from the full extent of my dishonesty. But you can't make a real decision about us unless you know everything. Okay. I braced myself. Tell me. I never wanted to marry you. Not really. I loved you, but I wasn't ready for marriage at 25. I felt pressured. By you, by timeline expectations, by fear of losing you if I said no. So I said yes even though part of me was screaming that it was too soon. The words hit like bullets. You didn't want to marry me. I wanted to want to marry you. But no. Looking back, I think I would have preferred to wait a few more years, figure myself out more, but saying that would have meant disappointing you, and I couldn't handle that. So our entire marriage has been built on you saying yes when you meant no. Not exactly. I did want to build a life with you. I just wanted it on a different timeline. But once we were married, I committed to making it work, by lying and pretending, by trying to be the wife I thought you needed. I couldn't speak for a long moment. Finally, what else? The year after your father died, when I seemed depressed and withdrawn, I wasn't just mourning him. I was fantasizing about leaving, about getting divorced and starting over somewhere else. I even looked into apartments, drafted a letter telling you I wanted out. Why didn't you? Because you were still grieving. Because it felt cruel to leave right after your father died. Because I kept telling myself it was just a phase, and I'd feel differently once I processed everything. She was crying now, so I stayed. And eventually the urge to leave faded, and I convinced myself I'd made the right choice. But that whole year, I was one bad day away from walking out. Jesus, Lauren, there's more. The house fire? Part of me was relieved, not about losing everything, but about having an external reason for why I wasn't happy. About being able to blame circumstances, instead of admitting the marriage itself felt suffocating. Every revelation peeled back another layer of the life I thought we'd built. So what parts were real? Anything? My love for you was real. My admiration for you was real. My desire to support you through hard times was real. But my contentment with our marriage? My certainty that I'd made the right choice, that was never fully there. I was always just managing, trying to make it work, hoping that eventually the life I was living would start to feel like the life I actually wanted. And it never did. No, it never did. We sat in crushing silence. The restaurant buzzed with other people's conversations, other people's normal lives. Why tell me this now, I finally asked. Because you can't make a real choice about whether to stay married to me unless you understand who you're actually married to. Not the image I presented, not the partner I tried to be, but the real me, the woman who spent 16 years uncertain about her choices, but too scared to admit it. This isn't just about the affair anymore. No, it's about everything. About whether we ever really had what we thought we had, or if we were just two people, playing roles and hoping it would eventually feel real. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. Or maybe I saw someone clearly for the first time. Someone who'd been drowning in expectations and lies for our entire relationship. Someone who'd loved me, but never in the way I thought she had. Someone who'd been performing for 16 years and had finally run out of energy to keep up the act. I think we need to get divorced, I said. Lauren nodded, tears streaming down her face. I think so too. Not because of the affair, really, but because we were never actually on the same page. I was all in from the beginning, and you've been half in, half out for 16 years. That's not a marriage. I know. I'm so sorry. You deserve someone who is certain about you, and you deserve to figure out who you were before committing to forever with someone. We filed for divorce the next month. It was amicable, if heartbreaking. We divided our assets, sold the house we'd rebuilt after the fire, went through the legal dissolution of 16 years together. People were shocked. But you guys survived everything, our friends said. You were the couple that made it. I didn't try to explain. How do you tell people that survival isn't the same as thriving? That making it through external crises doesn't mean your relationship is healthy? That sometimes the strongest looking marriages are just two people performing strength while quietly falling apart inside? The divorce was finalized 6 months after I found the pregnancy test. Lauren moved back to Vermont to be near her parents. I stayed in Boston, got my own apartment, started rebuilding my life as a single man at 42. I saw her one last time, the day before she left for Vermont. We met for coffee and it was strange and sad and oddly peaceful. I don't hate you, I told her. I want you to know that. I don't hate myself anymore either. My therapist helped me see that I was doing the best I could with the emotional tools I had. I made terrible choices, but I wasn't trying to hurt you. I know. You were trying not to hurt me. That's the problem, really. You were so focused on managing my feelings that you never let me know your real ones. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. I'd be honest from the start about not being ready for marriage, about not wanting children, about struggling with our relationship. Would you? Or would you still be too scared of disappointment to be honest? She thought about it. I don't know. I hope I'd be braver, but maybe not. Maybe I'd make all the same mistakes. I hope you figure it out. How to be honest, how to know yourself, how to be in a relationship without losing yourself in it. I hope so too. And Thomas, I hope you find someone who's all in from the beginning, who doesn't need to perform or pretend. You deserve that. We said goodbye with a hug that felt like mourning. Mourning not just for what we'd had, but for what we'd thought we had and never actually did. A year later, I'm still processing everything, still untangling my memories of our marriage, trying to figure out which parts were real and which were performance, still learning to trust my own judgment after spending 16 years fundamentally misreading the person closest to me. But I'm also okay. Better than okay, actually. I'm dating again, but carefully this time, paying more attention to what people show me through their actions instead of just believing their words, looking for consistency between what someone says they want and how they actually behave. I heard through mutual friends that Lauren's in therapy regularly, working on herself, not dating anyone. I'm glad. I hope she figures out who she is when she's not performing for someone else. I hope she learns to tolerate disappointing people in service of being honest. I hope her next relationship is healthier than ours was. As for me, I've learned that surviving hardship together doesn't guarantee a relationship is strong. Sometimes it just means you're good at focusing on external problems instead of looking at internal ones. Sometimes the strongest looking marriages are just two people avoiding the truth. Our marriage survived my father's death. It survived bankruptcy. It survived a house fire that destroyed everything we owned. but it couldn't survive honesty. Couldn't survive one of us finally admitting that we'd never been on the same page. Couldn't survive the truth that we'd spent 16 years building a life on false premises and good intentions. That's the thing about truth. It's the one test that reveals everything else. You can survive tragedy and hardship and disaster, but you can't survive fundamental dishonesty. You can't survive one person showing up fully while the other is just performing. You can't survive 16 years of lies no matter how well-intentioned they were. Our marriage survived everything, except the truth. And in the end, truth was the only thing that really mattered.